Congratulations on the Pulitzer Prize.
Thank you. I'm a little dazed about it. I'm relieved the story got out. When I last talked to you, I was still very much embattled and cranking out stories.
Right. The last time we talked, I think you were about to put out the article about what Harvey Weinstein and his lawyers did to try to suppress stories.
The former Mossad agents that were on my tail for much of the fall. That was entertaining.
Right. And was that involved also in sort of the catch and kill pulp media where they would catch a story and say, we'll print your story, but then never print it?
So the link between the Weinstein stories I was working on and the Trump stories that I've broken since is very direct in that they were both using the same intermediaries, this company AMI being one of them that publishes the National Enquirer, to conduct secret calls and go after people.
Wow. Which is the opposite of the First Amendment. It's the freedom... It's the freedom of not speech.
It's an interesting phenomenon wielded by a surprising number of powerful people that I think it's good people know about. And look, there could be serious ramifications in terms of election law, because these were all secret payments to keep stories quiet during an election.
You also got another big honor this week. It's not just the Pulitzer. You were also honored by Tyra Banks, who said of you, "The man has lips, the man has smize, the man should be on cycle 25, the man is Ronan Farrow, and he's both brilliant and beautiful. Get his book." Sure. You do have excellent lip game. What is your emollient? What do you go Carmex? Do you do Blistex?
I'll never tell,
shea
Stephen.
butter? What are you doing here?
All I'll say is that I owe my smize to the brave sources who spoke.
Oh, wow. Noble. No. Noble, even when you're being silly. Now, let's talk about your latest thing. But by the way, I'm about to talk about this book. When do you have time to do this? How do you have time to do these articles, which have to be time-intensive because they're exhaustively researched, they're not short, they're New Yorker articles, and you're writing a new book. It's called War on Peace, The End of Diplomacy and the Decline of American Influence. When did you write this?
Not a lot of sleep in my life, Stephen, in the last 3 years. You know, Ariana Huffington is mad at me. She's got her, pro-sleep movement, and I'm not a pro-sleep person. I'm trying to sleep now. Thank you for tolerating my sleepless company at this moment. Look, there were nights where I was working on this story until 2 a.m. at The New Yorker, and then going home and typing until my fingers bled, and turning in a draft of a book chapter at 10 a.m. and then collapsing. It's not a healthy lifestyle. I wouldn't recommend it. While being on the run from former Mossad agents, but it's done now, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, what is the War on Peace?
America is undergoing a transformation right now. We are dismissing our diplomats and our peacemakers and our negotiators in droves, and all around the world, instead, we're doing the work that those negotiators once did through the Pentagon and the CIA. And what that means is, in effect, in conflict after conflict, we are becoming a nation that shoots first and asks questions later, or not at all in some cases.
So, okay, what does that mean? How does the decline of the State Department create the decline of American influence? Because a lot of people believe that American influence is because we can project power, that we have a military that is bigger than the next 9 militaries combined, and we can park any aircraft carrier off the shore of any country, Russia and China included, and shut down their airspace in a day.
And that's not untrue, and I don't think there's a sane person in this book or elsewhere that says, we shouldn't have significant military might. The question is of the balance between these two parts of our government. And, I tell the story of, I was a junior State Department official in Afghanistan, and I saw when the Obama administration reviewed what the hell do we do in Afghanistan. And my boss at the time, Richard Holbrooke, who you knew,
yes,
this larger-than-life veteran diplomat who had made peace in Bosnia, spent his last days decrying a process during that administration that he said was overtaken by military thinking. And there are senior Obama administration officials in this book who are very frank about saying, we were snowed by a culture of celebrity generals, and the diplomats never got into the room. And what that means is you have a very skewed approach to problems. Instead of a system where our peacemakers and negotiators spare our brave servicemen and women from going headlong into conflicts, the first solution is military. And that's a problem all over the world.
Back in the aughts, Dennis Kucinich, who was a congressman at the time, had introduced a bill calling for the development or the creation of a Department of Peace. And Willie Nelson was a fan of Kucinich's, and I had Richard Holbrooke and Willie on the same night. He was negotiating a peace between me and Willie because we had competing ice cream flavors. And after the show was over, and after Holbrooke sang On the Road Again with Willie, which was fantastic, Willie said to him, when the cameras are off, he said, "Why don't you create a Department of Peace? Don't we need one?" And Holbrooke, who is a very tall man, looked down at Willie and he said, "Willie, we have one. It's called the State Department, but it has to be used as such."
Yeah, I thank you for applauding that.
That is, he was a great man and believed in peace and believed in diplomacy.
It's a misunderstood profession. I mean, I'm glad you raised that.
Yeah, what do people not understand about the State Department? Because I'm fascinated by these people who dedicate their lives to this.
So often on the campaign trail, it's politically expedient to just denigrate our diplomats, you know? And there's this image of the dusty bureaucrat who doesn't get anything done. And for sure, I worked at the State Department. That place does not work all the time. It's got problems, it needs reform. But what's happening now is we're just throwing it out. We're not reforming it. And I think that part of what underpins that, Stephen, is that we do allow the denigration of this profession, which in fact consists of a lot of brave people who could make a lot more money in the private sector and take their families and move them around the world in the most dangerous places in the world, and they don't get welcomed home with ticker tape parades. I think there is a fundamental lack of understanding of just how important these people are and how important what they do is to keeping us all safe.
You talked to Tillerson, you talked to every living former Secretary of State. What does Tillerson have to say about his, what some have called the dismantling of the apparatus of the State Department?
He's more candid here, and I'm very grateful to him for this, than he really has been before on the record. It's one of his last interviews in the job, and he very openly, first of all, puts a lot of blame on the White House, says that they were cumbersome and they rejected all of his pleas to fill all of the many, many unfilled roles across the State Department. We have all these embassies that are just empty now. And he also says, what I thought was a really startling thing, that he was just inexperienced. You know, he talks about defending this 30% cut to the State Department budget in his first months on the job and just not knowing better. You know, that he thought you could go out on the Hill and say, "No thanks, I don't want money," and assume Congress would just give you more. As it turns out, Congress did try to roll back these cuts and not accept these cuts, but you know, every other living Secretary of State expressed some degree of astonishment at that approach to advocacy for your own institution.
Any chance, did you talk to Pompeo?
So Pompeo is a question mark in this book, and what we know about him is that he's more hawkish than Rex Tillerson. We know that he's lockstep with the president on the Iran deal, which Tillerson had pushed back on the president's efforts to get out of the Iran deal. All evidence seems to point to the fact that he will be a much more willing executioner of the State Department, but I gotta say, I've been talking to many of the whistleblowers who did a brave thing and went on the record in this book, and to a one, hope springs eternal. They see him as having an opportunity to reverse the nosedive the State Department is in.
Well, thanks for writing this book. People need to know about the State Department and what's happening to American diplomacy. War on Peace is available now. Ronan Farrow, everybody. We'll be right back with a performance by Grace Vanderwall. Thanks, man.